Keegan and Company is not a licensed mental health service and should not be a substitute for professional help. In these conversations, we touch on a variety of mental health issues, and the advice given is general in nature. So, if you are struggling, please seek professional advice or call Lifeline on 13 11 14. Enjoy the episode. Keegan and Company. It's Keegan and Company, the company you keep. That's it. That's got to be it. Welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast. In this episode, I'm talking to former NRL great, current host of the NRL 360 and mental health advocate, Braith Anasta. How are you, brother?
Keegs, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. We had a pretty good morning this morning.
Yeah.
We got in the gym. We had a good lift. Music was pumping. Got a good little coffee afterwards. How you feeling?
Shirt's off. It was outstanding.
Good.
No, I'm feeling good, mate. Try and do it a few times a week. You know that we try and do our sessions, and when you start the day with a good session early, you get to plan your day, and you've sort of ticked the box early, and off you go.
Mate, I reckon meeting you and Sean was one of my favourite things coming into Sydney, like doing the session Coogee. I remember when we first started training together, whenever it was, a year or so ago, we were like, you boys are looking jacked. Like, I was like, you boys are looking good. And you said something like, mate, you should have seen me before City to Surf. Like, I was so fat. And I was like, mate, what was the turning point from City to Surf? Like, what was the mindset switch?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. And because I did the City to Surf, because I'm ambassador for the Australian Skin Cancer Foundation. And the 2 days before, the guys that run it said, can you run the City to Surf for us? Not run it, just walk it, you know? And I thought, yeah, of course I can do it. I had to work later that day on the Sunday ticket on Fox and host the show. And I thought, yeah, I'll do it. I've never done it before, and I've always wanted to do it. I didn't realise how far it was.
It's tough, mate. Heartbreak Hill, mate, that's tough.
14 Ks. And anyway, I said, sweet. And I was really out of shape. And I thought I wasn't as bad as I was, right? Like everyone, we all got and fall into those holes every now and then. But this had accumulated over a few years. Anyway, I kind of said, yeah, I'll do it. And the competitiveness in me, I started walking with them. Yeah. And I see if I'm running, I'm like, fuck this. You know, but just, you know, it's like
a little footy
I said,
thing,
I can't do that. I can't walk this.
Yeah.
It's going to take me forever, and I just don't have it in me. So I started jogging, and then I just started running, and I just went hard, and I took it on, and I didn't stop, and I actually, I don't know the time, but it was a decent time, and I was way out of shape, and it just spurred me on because I actually lost a bit of weight from the run. Had to go into work. I was cramping up on set. So I'm like, I'm going, hello and welcome to, the Sunday ticket. And I got getting cramps, and I'm trying to act like I'm sweet. And I'm dying in the chair. I'm there all laughing at me, like all the producers and the boys that were on with me on the panel. But it was a moment I knew I had to lose weight, and I knew I was out of shape, but it kick-started me because it was it was the most trauma I'd sort of been through fitness-wise since, probably playing the game, playing rugby league. So it just got me, motivated. And then I was off.
Because you obviously, mate, you've been through the whole however many years of playing grade at a top level. Like, pre-seasons are tough. I remember you saying, mate, that was the hardest thing I've done since playing footy.
Everyone runs it every year. And you just think it's a fun run. Everyone's dresses up, but when you actually do it, and if you run it, it is a long way. And it's I actually missed it this year because of work, but it's a lot harder than what you think if you do it properly. But yeah, it was a big challenge, and I don't think I would have done it if I'd known how hard it was, because I would have thought, no, I just can't do this at the moment. But it was good going in blind because it made me do it. And then, it's been a blessing. I suppose.
And obviously, we train every week, you're kicking it off. So it obviously kickstarted the whole last sort of couple years, and it ties into, I'm guessing, probably Good Dad, right?
Yeah.
Strong Dad. Yeah. Strong Dad. Tell me a little bit about Strong Dad and how that kicked off and how that started.
Yeah. So it just organically happened. So I started training about a year and a half ago. So it would have been a little bit before the City to Surf, and because that was when I was at my worst. I was 110 kilos. I played at 97, and I didn't look good. And I went through a separation, so I wasn't myself either. I was down, I moved out of my own home. You know, then you got, you know, I had a split family as we were kind of the Brady bunch, and then I had to separate the kids, and you know, so it was a stressful time for me, and I'd put weight on in you know before that, so everything sort of accumulated into this tough time, you know, which we all go through. But it was and anyway, so I started training with Sean, who was my old trainer, and we did it just as mates testing each other and started doing some sessions. And then he's big on social media, and he's got his own platform there, and he's got his own business. And so he'd put posts up and I'd repost them. And then a lot of guys could relate, and they were like, man, what are you guys doing? And it just turned into this sort of, I wouldn't say cult, but like a lot of men.
Kind of like a community, right?
Yeah. And even yourself, like you come along, Rennie Matua come along, Matty Holloway come along. I mean, we had 3 or 4 or 5 blokes doing sessions, but I had guys hitting me up because we start talking really about, you know, about life, you know. It would help me having you there and Sean there, and we talk about, you know, what's going on, and, you know, our ex-missuses or missuses or our kids. And so all of a sudden, just naturally, not only were we training and getting fit and looking good, but we're getting shit off our chest that we wouldn't otherwise do. And just in that process, as I said, people start messaging, a lot of guys, mate, you're looking good, feeling good, how you doing it? You know, and a lot of guys reached out to me, mate, I'm going through a similar thing. I've been going, my missus, you know, either we've broken up, she's left me, she won't let me see my kids, you know, really like hard guys going through hard times. And I'm like, I couldn't write back, and I'm not a specialist, right? And I'm not a therapist. So I'm thinking, you know, how do guys get help these days? You know, where do they go to if they don't have the group that like we've created? How are they gonna get help, or how are they gonna get back on track like I did? And so we thought, why don't we just start Strong Dad, and get guys involved, but we push obviously the training, but we don't push it too hard in terms of it's at your own level, your own pace, but also really emphasize diet, of course, but really what separates it from the others is mental health and mindset, you know? So trying to give men ways of dealing with tough times, being resilient, coming up with tools to be better, you know, and you know, going for walks or whatever it may be. We've come up with, you know that with what we do. So just sort of, we said, let's just kick this off. And then all of a sudden it turned into a business. And now we've got, you know, a few hundred people involved in it. We've got our next program coming up and all that. But I really wanted to tap into that, like you know, what you're passionate about, obviously, is that mindset, mental health, and giving guys ways of dealing with hardships, being resilient, and just having tools of taking that next step, you know?
And it's so easy to like fall into that mindset of like kicking stones, right?
Man.
You know, I've gone through a divorce, you know, I've just, whatever mental issues you are going through, it'd be so, even just being tied up with work.
Yeah, man.
Like life takes over. It'd be tough. Like, and I'd be so hard, like even coming out of sport, right? Like coming out and trying to find your identity, even for someone who's pivoting in a career, like it'd be so easy to kick stones and just, you know, oh, well, you know, I've got kids, I've got to work, they're a priority. I've got a family, they're a priority.
Yeah.
Like myself and me personally would probably sit second to that.
That's right. That was a big thing, is prioritizing yourself. A lot of us a lot of people and a lot of, when you're in relationships, people call you selfish or whatever. You've got to be selfish to a degree to take care of yourself and look after yourself, because you can really lose yourself without even knowing it. And that's kind of what I did. But the big feel for me was letting people know, and specifically here with men, with the Strong Dad, and it goes for women as well. So I'm not excluding women, but he's just letting guys know you're not alone. It's okay to feel the way that you feel. You know, we all go through hardships. A lot of us, mate, we're on the ground. You know, like but don't stay there. You know, like what can we kind of do to move on and get out of that? And I think that was the big thing, is just having an extra support network, and because a lot of times when you fall into those bad times, you think you're never going to get out of them, right? Yeah. And we'll probably talk more about it, but like post football and, you know, going through a separation, you know, you've got interest rates, cost of living, all going up. You know, the separation and divorce rates, they're going up. So the reality is, throughout our lifetime, we're going to have to deal with adversity and loss and disappointment, and you've got to have the tools to be able to cope with that. And I think with what we've created, we can help,
And so so at the end of the day, yeah, it's like a program.
Yeah.
So it's a program. They go through the six weeks program. How do they, I guess I'm trying to ask is how does the community aspect tie into that?
So it's an 8-week program to start off with. In that program, we've got certain, we've done, it's like this style, and we've cut it up into 8 weeks where you can get, you get certain habits that we provide, certain things that we live by, and standards, and let's just say for consistency. If you're time poor, how do you make time? So we try and not only, we give you the program, the fitness program, which is physically you can see online because Sean and I do it. Then we've got nutrition. My Muscle Chef has come on board because they love the concept. BSC's come on board because they love the concept, so you get a discount on those. But the big thing is really that there's a Facebook group.
Right.
And this is what I'm proud of, and this is what we're going to get pushed more of, where everyone doing the program can communicate with each other why you're doing the program, and I think that's very important, so that you can kind of go, okay, I'm struggling with this, or I'm doing well with this, or how do I do that, or how can I be better at this or that. So there's that constant communication between the group that are actually doing it. So obviously we'd love to do it physically, but it's impossible when you've got people from all across, the country, some in New Zealand even as well. But there's more to this. We've only, I want it to be bigger and better. I want it to have access to therapists if you want it online, right? That's probably another step of another phase. This is only our first one. So there's a whole different, we will have group training every now and then where we invite people down. We want to do camps, get to a point where we do camps. And then we'd love to do also podcasts of dads, right? Not just, Cameron Munster or JT, who are famous football rugby league dads, which I will get on, but I want to get a strong dad, a punter.
Someone who's been through the whole thing, right?
Been through it, been through the ringer, done our program, lost a lot of weight, feels a lot better, love the support network. But either way, it's not just about being a personality, it's about that's why I made it so affordable too. Is $99 for 8 weeks, and all of this is included, right? Because it's not all about the dollar. It's about, the priority here is it comes from the heart for me. So it's making sure that we can make people better, be better, feel better, be better dads, better partners, more efficient at work. That's the big thing.
And once you've seen the progress, like same with you when you're coming out of the city to surf, once you see the progress, I'm sure that you have the evidence to be confident. You're like, well, actually, I've gone through the 6 weeks. I've done this. Fuck, I can do it again.
Yeah.
I've seen the progress, and it's like, having a stack of undeniable evidence to make yourself confident.
That's
right?
right.
And everyone's got their own why, like whether it's for their kids, whether it's for their partner.
You hit the nail on the head there, right? It's the why. Why do we get up every morning? What's our inspiration? You got to find that. If you can find that in your life, and you've always got a why, always, no matter who you are, what you do, whether you got kids or not, there is a fucking why. And you use that to motivate you, right? And you use that to drive you, and that's what inspires you. And that's a big thing, like what you just said then.
How do you find a why? Because I know with us and a lot of our mates who have come out of rugby league, a lot of them struggle with identity.
Yeah.
And a lot of them struggle with, well, I've been a professional football player since I was 17, 18-year-old. I've been in the system for 10, 15 years. What am I going to do now? How do you find your why, and how do you find your purpose?
I think for us athletes, or ex-athletes, or the guys that do transition, my first advice, and this is, but I mean, you're in a unique situation where you retired early, man. That's a tough situation, and that's a unique one. Doesn't happen too often. But you would know a lot of guys that have come in and out of the system really quickly too. The average footy player, 50 games? Is it?
Mate, I think it's
like
46 games.
The ones that have lasting careers, but even the ones that don't, you really have to prioritise life after footy, regardless. And I go back to cost of living, and man, you look at me. I've earned a lot of money, but I've had a marriage breakdown and a separation with a child. So you lose a lot of money, mate. And that's because of the rise in separation. There's a risk of, even if you are one of the most successful athletes in the world, if your relationship doesn't work, you kind of go back to square one. So regardless of the money you earn, you got to prepare for life after footy. You've got to, and I kind of think the motivation for the guys, apart from preparation and putting yourself out there, and because that's what I did with Fox. Like, I was only in my early 20s. And I was thinking already about life after
That
footy.
early,
And
yeah.
I was. And I thought, I talk okay in front of the camera. I feel comfortable. I've got a lot of work to do, but how do I get better and how do I get to the point where I can make a living after footy? And that's when I started sort of just doing work experience and doing behind the scenes that eventuated in me making the transition. But, I kind of, I think if you're an athlete, you are driven by success and driven by winning. Whether you like it or not, that's a big motivator.
Everyone's competitive, right?
Competitive.
And you have to be to get there.
That's right. So if you don't have kids and you don't have a partner and you're struggling to find that why, it's like, well, mate, I want to be the best at whatever I do.
Yeah.
So what is it that I can do, and how do I get to the top of the tree, whatever that is, right? Because we're used to that being athletes and rugby league players. Is I want to get to first grade. I want to play this position. I want to play for New South Wales, Australia, whatever. We start here, but we've always got goals and targets and dreams and aspirations. So it's no different with life after footy, whatever industry you want to get into or whatever. You've obviously got to go through that thought process of what suits you and what you could possibly do or be, but set targets, win. You know what I mean? Like, how do I win?
But also like coming out of football, like you've been doing it for 10, 15, probably even longer if you started playing when you're a kid and you're in the top 0.001% of people who play. When you come out of grade, you're back like everyone else and everyone's already got 10 years of life experience and work experience on top of you. So it's almost like you're coming back, like even in the business world, like, man, I finished up two years ago, came out of the world, I was like, I didn't realize how dumb I was compared to everyone else who has been doing it for the last 10 or 12 years. So you're almost, well, I don't know, just for me, I realized I have to take a step back and be like, reassess, like, no, you're not going to be the best straight away.
Oh, no way.
And you have to reassess and be like, okay, well, what's next? I've got the target.
Yeah.
How do I get there? And
That's
it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
Like, this stuff happens over years. And that's, I don't know if it's my generation or the generation coming through. They want everything so quickly.
They do.
Right?
You got to be patient with it too. Like it's like you said, it's not going to happen straight away. It's not going to happen overnight. It's something you've got to be persistent with. But also you kind of sacrifice a lot as an athlete that people don't know about. You miss all your mates' weddings or parties or birthdays. You can't go to Europe and all that, which is really why you're doing it. It's not a huge sacrifice at the time, but then you miss life experiences and you can't get them back. They're gone. So, you're also behind with life experience as well. So you kind of want to, you've got to make another life for yourself, but you also want to do things that you couldn't do while you were playing professional sport. And it's hard. That's when it probably gets a bit hard, to kind of find that balance between living a good lifestyle when you're not getting the same pay.
Yeah.
Living those experiences that you sacrificed and missed out on for so long.
Yeah.
And then trying to get to that next phase of what I want to do next and what am I going to be good at and how do I get there?
Yeah.
It's a constant challenge, but preparation is everything regardless of how good you're going, how shit you're going. You need to have, you need to know or have a backup. You need to have a backup plan, but also don't stress it. You don't want to be stressing about it. Like, it's easy to say.
Is that because obviously you manage like a few NRL players and a few golfers as well? Is that some of the stuff that you tell them, like to have a plan B?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And have a plan B, and also invest your money wisely.
Yeah.
Like it's paramount because I've just got so many mates now that just have nothing, that have earned quite a lot of money, through no fault of their own. They just thought it was going to be there forever, and it wasn't, and it's sad. And then you're chasing your tail, and you got all these young bucks that are ahead of you, like you said, because they've had the education, the life experience, and even work experience that you haven't had. So that so you end up having to use contacts, that's a big thing, right? That's actually comes to mind now. Leverage the people around you. Have mentors. You're good at that now. I know that you're good at that, and use your connections, mate. Like, that's the privilege that kind of we do have as athletes at the time. Like, the Roosters I had, Mark Burris, Nick Politis, David Gingell.
How's the lineup?
Like
insane.
That's a big reason I went there, because I thought about life after footy, and I'm thinking it's a great club. Obviously, they've got money, but they can help me post career. So the likes of David Gingell was running 9. Politis owns 500 dealerships, both more even I think both here and overseas. They know the right people, and they've got the right advice. So surround yourself with the right people. Leverage. I mean, a lot of footy players are like they're shy too. Everyone thinks you're not because you're playing first grade. No, they're shy to try and go up and ask for things or get advice from people or leverage the position they're in.
Yeah.
But that's definitely one that I didn't do much early doors, but I do a lot more now and do at the back end. But going back, what I'm saying now is pretty much what I tell my boys, that I look after.
Mate, I'd love to go back to your NRL career. Like, I feel like I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I feel like we have to. I was doing a bit of research and obviously used to watch you like growing up. Rookie of the year, like in your debut year at 18. Did you come out of high school and just go straight into grade? What was that like?
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. I was a kid, and I had all these high expectations because my uncle was like the president of South, George Piggins, and I played schoolboys and all the junior roos and all that. So I was expected to be successful, but it just happened so quick. You're straight out of school, I was the South junior. I would have stayed at South, but they got kicked out of the comp. And unfortunately, I would have been at South forever, but I had to leave because I was on the cusp of first grade. And my uncle, I got a deal at Canterbury. But I never forget it. My first game, I played one game, my debut in Canberra, and it was off the bench, and it was pretty cool. It was an amazing, cool moment. And you never know when you're going to get back there. But the real one was the year I got Rookie of the Year, and I got called in. And it was my first real game starting against the Northern Eagles. But I had no fear, because I didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
I ran on the field like I was just playing SG ball or whatever. I kind of didn't buy into the hype. I just turned up. I went out there and, man, I took 2 or 3 intercepts, set up about 3 or 4 tries. And, mate, the place went crazy, and I walked off thinking, man, this is unbelievable. And I remember my girlfriend at the time went for brekkie, and I was oblivious, mate, oblivious to like the impact or the severity of what had happened that night. And I remember I think it was a Sunday morning, and I went down to just Coogee to get breakfast, and I got the Sunday telly, and I'm back page.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm like, fuck. And then, everyone's walking past it because everyone watched the footy. It could have even been a Friday night
right
game.
In the thick of it, like you're in.
It was a Channel 9, big game. And I was, I was like, man, this is the real deal, And then, but I didn't let it get to me at all, for the first sort of real year. I just rode the wave and just loved it, It was probably the most enjoyable year, to be fair, but it was crazy.
But I imagine there'd be so much pressure that comes with that, especially later on. Like, you captain every side that you're with, because you're captaining the side at 20.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure. That's got to be a huge weight. Like, I look at myself when I was a 20-year-old kid, and mate, I was a fucking idiot. Like, I was so dumb. Mate, I was riding motorbikes and jumping out of planes, and I look back and think I was such an idiot. But mate, how did you go dealing with the pressure, when you're in the thick of it, as a 20-year-old, 18-year-old? Yeah.
It caught up to me. This is the thing. I was just always that guy who was expected to do well, and everything I did well, and I captained every team I played for, but it catches up on you, the hype and expectation and being put on a pedestal in your first year. So I was there, Rookie of the Year, Kangaroo Tour, touted for Origin the following season, all that. I look back on it, and as amazing as it was probably not good for me, not good for my career, because the expectation from everyone was just to maintain that, right, or get better from there, which is very hard for young half, to do anyway, right? And people obviously work you out. You get double teamed. It's like anything, you're not that new kid on the block who no one really knows, or oppositions don't really know how you play. So for me, I struggled because then everyone expected me to be that player every week, and I maintained it for quite a while. But then I just hit a brick wall, and that's when I really struggled, and that's when I copped it from everyone.
What does hitting a brick wall look like?
It was bad. Like this was a few years in, and I copped a few. I remember my second year, could have been my first year. I got the most overrated player in the game because I used to have that back then. It was
Who's driving that? Is that just like a
it's
magazine?
disgraceful. That was rugby league week. It was like now you look back on it, they would never do it now, right? Because of obviously, we're more aware of people's feelings
Is that voted by fans?
players. No, players. That's why it
How
hurts.
do they get away with that?
Well, see, a lot of what they would do is they ring the play because they'd ring me, right? And this would be a standard sort of. They go, mate. They ask you, a lot of issues in the game, and it's a big poll in the rugby league week. Then they'd say, "Who's the most overrated player?" And I remember I'd say, "Oh, mate, fuck,
I'm not answering
mate,
that.
yeah, and they say, "Well, such and such as these blokes have all said, So they kind of, when there's a bit, they kind of throw the answer in your mouth, but I didn't answer it because, I copped it, so I was like, wasn't answering it. I ended up not doing them in the end, but, you're talking like minimal votes, and because a lot of blokes didn't answer it, and not more, and it was close there between me and a few other guys, but I kind of got it right. Like, I'll never forget it. I kind of got it because I was so overhyped, So I understand if you're other players and you're thinking, mate, he hasn't really proven himself. He's played a couple of years and geez, he's done well, but all this hype around him, and so I kind of understood why I would have been voted overrated. But the same, I remember one year, because I was still at home, I was a baby, and I was like, I won't get it this year, Mum. There's no way. I played Origin, won a series. I think I got 5-8 of the year. And I got, I think, player of the year at the Bulldogs or close to it, whatever. Anyway, I'm sitting upstairs and I try to, I was, at that point, there was quite a lot of negative press over a couple of years because even though I was playing well and for the average Joe, it was a really good career, it wasn't reaching those heights. And I'm thinking, surely I won't get, because it really impacted me. And I'm thinking, surely I won't get it this year. And I remember first, it's like the news comes on, Channel 9. It was downstairs and I was upstairs. I think I was on the computer. And I could hear them say, after the break, they've done the rugby league poll, and it was the main story on the Channel 9 news or sport. And I'm sitting upstairs, I'm thinking, I shouldn't listen to this, but I kind of got it. I'm like, and sure enough, bang, Braith Anasta is the most overrated player in the game. And I just fucking was shattered.
Yeah, what goes through your mind, man?
Mate, I had enough.
Yeah.
I said, fuck this. I can't. It just felt I couldn't please anyone.
Yeah.
I shouldn't, I've learned a lot from it, but at the time I'm like, I don't want to play anymore.
Really?
I was like, fuck this, Mum, I'm done. I just said, mate, like, it was my whole life I'd succeeded in whatever I did. And I thought I was, but then I thought I was a failure, and when it's your own peers, it's even worse.
100%. Well, it's like players the best
mate,
award that you can get. And on reverse side. Yeah. How old were you then?
Oh, mate, I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was, like we're making finals and nearly winning comps every year at the Dogs, and mate, I couldn't have been doing too much more. Like, I would have had to be one of the greats to sort of probably not get, like, really. Like, I mean, I was polling in all the Daily M's every year. I was up in the top 10, most years, 580 of the year a couple of times, whatever. But it didn't matter to me. It was like, that was the only thing that mattered to me, and it hurt. And I was, and people, because then what happens is, then the crowds and the people disrespect you.
They get a hold of it as well.
They disrespect you because they don't respect you anymore. Because the players are saying this, you must be shit, And then, you go into games and it's embarrassing because people are yelling out to you while you kind of walking into the sheds, and then you're on the field kicking goals and you're just copping it, man. Everywhere you go, you're out at go for a drink with the boys, you're fucking overrated, nasty shit, all that. You just go, oh, mate. I'd rather just step away, And I know it's a big call, but I definitely contemplated it because it just wasn't. I wasn't enjoying myself.
So how did you obviously said like you wanted to step away? Like what kept you in it?
Yeah.
Or like
my mum was strong, and because she'd been through a lot, and my mates were great. But I think I started seeing a sports psych, which was great, and a therapist. Which was a bit beyond before.
Big thing for back then, right? Mate, even like the last couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, and that helped me a lot. And I just got through it, mate. Like, I don't even know how, to be fair. I just did. And then I kind of, I just pushed through it and tried to see the light at the end of the tunnel and just got through a really tough period there. But then, I think, because, I'd sort of dealt with it. A lot of people didn't know me either. They didn't know what I'd been through or the life I'd had. I just was always that kid who'd looked like he'd been gifted the golden spoon, you know what I mean? And everything had just been given to me. I hadn't had to work hard for anything, which is just rubbish. But it was just a perception I had. I lived in the eastern suburbs and dated, a couple of hot chicks. Not being like,
Mate, I know, I get it.
You know what I mean?
Well, I don't get it, but I can see where you're coming from.
It's all poppy syndrome in this country, and I was that stereotypical kind of, I was that guy, and it wasn't who I am, and that's what's good about it now is people have got to know who I am as a person more now. So, and anyone who meets me knows the type of person I am, and I'm very comfortable in that. And all of that time, just builds resilience, and it teaches you again tools to deal with things now, and from that moment too.
I want to touch on you seeing a sports psych and a therapist because, mate, I see psych every month.
Yeah, nice.
Like I originally started seeing one when I was playing footy at the Titans when I was going through a tough time and the club recommended it. I thought, I've never seen one before. It'd be a good thing to do. And I would only really go see one when I was going through shit, when I was like at the real bottom. But more recently I found that, like, you don't stop going to the gym when you're fit. So why would I stop seeing a therapist when I'm feeling good? So I'll see one every month, mate. I spoke to her this morning, and I'm in a good headspace at the moment. Yeah. But what did you get out of seeing a therapist? And because obviously it's not spoken about, there is kind of a stigma around it. What did you get out of it, and why do you think it's probably beneficial?
Well, the stigma around it is just that proud male thing, right? Yeah. Which is again about talking and what we're trying to encourage is men talking, and that's a part of it. Like, you can go to this person and tell them anything, right? And they'll tell you, they don't always tell you what you want to hear too, right? So it's a lot of home truths, but it's also a way to get shit off your chest. If you don't have that person that you can trust to, because not all of us have got mentors or people that we can kind of confide in, like I didn't have a dad. So it was kind of like just a way of getting positive reinforcement as well, like not only getting stuff off my chest and getting the emotions out, because it'd be an emotional time at times, when you're going through tough, and you feel comfortable in that environment, like, but you got to find the right one too.
It takes a couple.
I've had a couple,
times. Yeah.
So not all of them are going to be the right fit for you. That's fine. But it gave me certain, like, I'd write things on my wrist. So I started writing, real positive notes on my wrist, and then I'd look at them during a game. That was one little thing. All sorts of things, really, like your preparation, your ability to block the noise out is a big one. Who gives a fuck what people think, unless they're the ones that you love, care, and know really are not just yes men. They're telling you what you want, what you need to hear, but the ones that care about you. If you, just, which isn't easy to do, but that helps. It's a tool of also, blocking that noise, that negativity out, and just focusing on you and what's next and what you can do better and what's going to help you. And again, just getting all that, just getting it out, because, we hold so much in, like,
it bottles up and it'll probably get to a trigger point, right? And you can explode.
If I hadn't seen a sports psych or a therapist, who knows? I could have gave the game up early. I ended up playing nearly 300 games. I could have just walked away, and who knows? I wouldn't have probably been working at Fox. I wouldn't have had the identity I have now and the experience I had to therefore take that into expert opinion and now hosting, and and I wouldn't have had the stature I do now in the game that really provides a living for my daughters. You know what I mean? So it all, these little decisions that you make, they all are very important.
It's a full, like, sliding door moment, right? Like, every decision, like, you wouldn't be the person you are today without all the past shit that you've gone through.
I could have been curled up in a ball in a cycle, would I say it? Honestly, like, with the shit I went through, just rocking in the corner. Like, honestly, the abuse and just, like, the some of the shit, like, honestly, if I didn't have help and didn't, wasn't kind of the person I was, I reckon I could have easily went the other way. Easily,
Matt, you You touched on your dad, your old boy before. I'm very conscious about how to navigate this conversation. Are you comfortable about talking about your old boy? Is it something that you talk about often?
Nah, but I listen, I'm comfortable now. I wasn't for a long time. I just didn't deal. I kind of, well, I mean, touching, I'll tell you a bit about it. So when I was 15, my dad went to work. He didn't come home, and we were tight, and he committed suicide. And it just rocked all of us, right? Rocked our world. My family will never be the same. My mum never moved on. You know, my brother's, you know, he's been impacted by it greatly. We all have. It was a real shock to the system. Didn't see it coming. You know, knew he was going through a bit of a tough time, but he was very much like me too. Like, he was very driven, and he'd been successful in business, but had some hard times, and you know, his best mate kind of ripped him off, and he didn't know how to handle it. Didn't have the tools and techniques and people that back then. It was very stigmatized back then. It was like, if you kill yourself, like back in that day, you're selfish, or you know, it was a real negative, you know, it was really negative, and but my way of so that's been hard for me, because you don't have that mentor for the rest of your life.
Mate, even talking about it now, right? And it was what? 30 years ago,
it'll never go away, because it was such a shock, and it's just something you never expect, and it'll never go away. It'll haunt me forever. But I didn't deal with it at the time, and this is, I think, a good lesson for people watching, is I didn't deal with the trauma. I was that. Like, I used it as motivation, right? What would he want? And how can I make him proud? And how can I do my family proud? And I mean, I played in a golf tournament days after.
That's wild.
I just went and played, and I moved on with my life. And of course it was there. I was a mess, but I just went, fuck this. You know, what's next? And I just powered on. And I remember my uncle was caddying for me, you know, in a state championships golf tournament in Bowral, I think it was, or something like that. And everyone's mourning the death of my dad, you know. But like, you know, as I said, it's a really tough thing to talk about. But I'm better now. I could never talk about it. I'd break down it, because I didn't deal with the trauma.
Yeah.
And then hit me like in my 20s, like when I was going through those hard times, that hit me hard.
Yeah.
Because I you know, you kind of look for that person to lean on, but then I dealt with it then with therapists and sports.
So there wasn't, because people always think that there's got to be like a full rock bottom. You know, I was drinking too much. I lost everything. I hit the brick wall.
Yeah.
Was there a rock bottom at all, or was that?
I would say what I said before was pretty rock bottom.
Yeah.
I've had a few. Like, you have a few rock bottom moments, you know, and you know, going through separation and divorces, and you know, when you got kids involved. But I deal with everything a lot better now. Like, since, you know, my probably 30s, you know, like I'm 41. So I deal with everything a lot better, and I know how to deal with it more. Like, because I learned from that, because when you hit rock bottom and you haven't dealt with your past traumas, and, you know, you can get dark, you know. And I think my advice would be, if you do go through something quite severe, whether it's death or whatever it may be, and I think dealing with it at the time, it's probably a good thing, you know what I mean? Like
talking about it
and getting it off your chest, because it can hold you back, you know, and it can hit you harder later in life. And then it could be too late, you know what I mean?
Is that advice that you would give young 14-year-old Braith or 15-year-old Braith?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think, you know, even though I was I was successful quick, I hit a brick wall, and it nearly cost me my career and a lot of other things, right? I think I would have dealt with it more, and just take a step back and deal with the trauma, and go see a therapist, and which I did, but I didn't follow it through. I was just kind of there, empty. I wasn't really there, because I think a lot of people I talk to about similar situations, they do agree, and they've done the same, and it comes back. It comes back, you know?
Mate, that would resonate with so many people, because I know, mate, I'm sure we both have mates who have lost family members to suicide, which is wild to think about. Like, I can't imagine being a young kid going through that. So I imagine there'd be so many, kids, family members, parents that are going through the exact same thing, and they're bottling it up, like not talking about it. Like, that's such a great bit of advice.
You see a lot of kids, right? And it's sad as it is, you see it happens in communities too. because I would assume it's probably similar.
Yeah.
And most suicides, I'd say most are shock. You know, it's unexpected. You know, but because they're not dealing with it life or dealing with even their friend suicides or their whoever it may be. I think you got to be aware of that, even if you know people who have dealt with it, to surround them and get them to talk and kind of mourn. I think mourn but speak of the good times. But like you got to kind of deal with it. It doesn't go away. It's not going to go away, But again, it's like everything in life. What tools do you use to be able to power on and accept it, but still live a nice life and still have your moments. We're all going to have moments, when you miss the people that you've lost and all that. But you can't ignore it. You just can't. It'll get you somehow.
How old was your dad?
He was my age, 41.
Your exact age today.
Which spun me out. Yeah.
Have you reflected? Have you thought about that lately?
Yeah, when my birthday actually, I reflect on it big time because it was just like fuck, like it was
and especially now because you've got young girls. Yeah,
it was actually emotional, but yeah, I think it sort of realised like at the time when you kind of 15, 16, your dad's 40. You think they're old, don't you? Like you old pricks, like they're nearly dead. These people, you think they're old, like, and then you get to 40, and you go, "Fuck, I'm young.
I'm still young."
And I respect my mum so much. Like my mum's my rock, and we're like this, ever since really. But we were before, but even more so. But I think like for my mum to go through that at that age too, like. And she hasn't moved on since. Like she'd never even contemplated it. She was like so happily in love. She hasn't moved on with anyone or even been on a date. But like I just think far out, man. At 40, at that age to sort of get to that point is sad. But so much more life to live. And when I hit 41 this year, I was like, wow, that's just crazy to think that that it happened at that age.
Tell me about your mum. What's she like?
She's great. Like she's a great support network. She's been through it all with me. Like
she's been there for it all.
Oh, she loves it, and the journey's been amazing. Like she's proud of me, and I'm proud of her. But we've been through a lot together, so we've got a very strong bond, and we always will. She helps me now with the girls because I work so much and finding that life balance and prioritising time to spend with my daughters and picking up from school pickups. I work a lot, so she helps so much.
She sounds like such a genuine, giving lady, right? And mate, that's a lot of the traits I see from you, right, mate? You're when you get a feeling like that people are genuine.
Yeah.
Some people who like I don't know, they've got ulterior motives, but mate,
you kind of get that feel.
You get the feel, mate. Ever since meeting you and spending more time with you, mate, you're just genuine and you actually care about people around you. Like,
Thanks,
mate,
man, I appreciate that.
Mate, even earlier this year when I was going through a tough time with with everything that was going on, mate, you see, we obviously had conversations, but you didn't need to say anything. You were just there. Like you're just there for me. And we would train in the mornings, we get coffee, like let's go for a beer, go for a couple of beers at the pavilion, and that's the thing. You didn't have to do anything, but you were just there for me. So like thank you, but secondly, like why? Like, why do you do it?
I praise my mum and dad for that. Like, even though, like, I had a great upbringing, and even though my dad did what he did, he was very much like me. Very selfless, and I think that's why what ended him, because he was a bit embarrassed by where he got himself. But my mum and dad just always taught me good manners. Be good to people, treat people how you want to be treated, all those things, and I always have. Like I work hard, but everywhere I am, I think, that's like even with leadership and captain and all the clubs, you can't do that unless you got a good rapport with people.
Yeah,
and you get respect from people, and I've always respected everyone. I've always been good to everyone. I genuinely do care about the people that are in my life and care about people. It's just something that it's been ingrained in me from an early age. So I get a lot out of it. I think you're the same, right? Like you're very selfless in what you do and the way that you go about things, and I get a lot out of it. You know, it feels good
You
to be
pull
good.
energy from
Doesn't
it,
it
right?
feel good? Like
Yeah.
to see people appreciate you, and also just be happy that you know that you kind of you bring happiness to their lives. It makes you feel so good. Like that's how I get a lot of satisfaction. You know, so it means a lot to me.
And I think like fuck mate, good things happen to good people, right?
I believe in karma.
100%.
It's the only thing I don't believe in much.
Yeah.
You know, but I do believe like you treat people the right way. You know, I believe it comes around. You know, it comes back.
Mate, we touched on obviously some pretty heavy things. You've had such an incredible footy career and successful post-career career.
Mm.
What are some of the highs? Like, when you look back on your footy career, was there ever, or even in 360, like,
Yeah.
was there anything that you could be like, that's actually so wild to think about, and that's actually the funnest thing or the coolest thing that's ever happened to me, and that is there a standout that you think that is the coolest thing?
There's a few.
Take your pick.
Yeah,
you know?
there's a few. I think winning the premiership is everything. That's like a group of mates, like just that you just put your heart and soul, sweat and tears into for the Bulldogs in 2004. And when the siren goes and you've done it, is just the best feeling ever.
Yeah.
There is just nothing that can replace that feeling. That is the ultimate. Origin 2005 was epic. That was with Joey Johns.
Yeah.
And Brett Kamali threw the intercept to Matt Bowen at Suncorp, and he got dropped, and I came in. And I was supposed to partner Trent Barrett, and he went down with an injury. So they called Joey out of retirement. He was done.
Yeah, yeah.
And I partnered him in the last 2 games. And I played with, I believe, the best player. Well, best player I've ever played with, Joey Johns. But arguably the best player that's played the game. But just, that was epic. Because it was like I was playing but a spectator, like at the same time. Like, I learned so much from him. Like, just, Joey's a larrikin and he's a funny prick, and I love him. He rang me the other day. We talk often. And he'd be, you'd have your bonding sessions, and he's at the back by himself with bourbon and Coke. And,
times don't change.
Like just taking the piss out of everyone, just like drinking, like just having a great time. But I remember like our first session, and it was, we'd had a big night. Like it was, the first night's like kind of the bonding night.
The bonding session before camp.
Yeah, and I get this knock at Sparrow's Fart, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? And it was Joey. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he goes, come on, let's go. And I said, what? He goes, we're going down the park. I went, all right. Got my gear on, and he put me through all these drills, like this footwork and, where to hold the ball, square your shoulders, like all this. And I'm thinking, mate, this
is why.
This is why. Like everyone else is asleep. He's partied hard, but he trains the hardest. And I just went, fuck, this is so good. Like I love that stuff, right? So then, I learned, like everyone would always say, oh, Joey's just like a freak.
Yeah.
He's just talented, naturally gifted. No. He was, but he worked harder than everyone else. That's why he was one of the greatest, if not the greatest. And I saw that firsthand,
Yeah.
And then we played the game, and I've never seen someone just completely, like, he was 4 plays ahead. So he would be setting up, he'd be setting someone up in the opposition 3 or 4 plays early. He'd done the work, the homework, the video and all that. And he would spot a guy, and he had his great reception, but he knew exactly where he wanted to get to and where the hole was going to present itself once he got there. So you work yourself down the field, and he'd see the guy, but he'd look elsewhere, bang, straight back at him. He'd look elsewhere, bang, straight back at him. Then he'd go away from him, and this guy would think he's off the hook. And then the next play, he goes, looks like he's going straight back at him, try. Like, it was like a game of chess and watching a genius, just a masterclass. And I'm there playing 5-8 going, fuck, this is, mate, is this happening? I'm like touching myself. And I'm like, I held my own. I played a good series, but I was a shadow compared to him. But just to see it and just be a part of it, that was just like, in terms of moments, throughout my career, to be alongside someone like him and just learn from the best, that was one of them. And I'd say the other one is the field goal in 2010 to get through the prelim final.
Yeah.
Grand prelim. Yeah, it was actually against the Titans up at Suncorp. But we were gone against Roosters v Tigers, sold out stadium at Allianz, ANZ, Allianz now. Yeah, and I was always a kicker. Like kicking was a strong point, and field goals, I'd always gone for field goals, and I'd always dream of kicking winning field goals, and I'd kicked a few throughout my career, but none like this. And I'd always do at the end of sessions, I'd kick field goals from 40, from 30, from 50, from like it was just, but you never know when it's going to come, right? And you never know, you never know what sort of moment you're going to be presented. And I'd always been questioned about moments in games and, getting to that elite level or kind of aiming up on a big stage. Like I'd done it, but I always got questioned my whole career. And then, the moment kind of presented itself there. And
you were far out as well, yeah? Like you were 40 out?
I think it was about 30, probably 36, 37, but it was close to the sideline. So it was probably about a 40-metre kick.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, it was just frantic. And I got the ball and I just went to take it, couldn't take it, threw it. And then I just fired the ball. And then lucky Minnie got the ball because he's smart and he's experienced and he knew that I was probably the one to look for in that moment. And I just stood back. And it was another out-of-body experience. And he threw the pass. And at that point, the hooter was about to go. And if we missed, we were out because the other game hadn't gone our way. But we didn't know that. And it was just to tie the game, to go into extra time. I got the ball and I hit it. And for the second I hit the ball, it was never missing. Just that fear.
Goosebumps, bro.
Man, I just started, I didn't even look. I started running because I knew it was over. I was that fired up. But also, I think I was so emotional because it was just kind of a bit of a moment where I thought that, I don't know if you say you prove people wrong, but I'd nailed that moment that I dreamt of my whole life, but we still hadn't won the game. So that was, but it was just and I remember getting to the group and I said, we're not fucking losing this game.
Yeah.
Like we are, because we were gone. And I said, we are not losing this game. We are fighting to the death.
Yeah.
And we are just showing up to every play and we are pushing up and we are just not walking off this field losing this game. I just remember as clear as day. And then Sean Kennedy there gets the intercept off Liam Fulton, scores in the corner in the 100th minute, something like that. It was that was
and wins the game.
Yeah.
Mate, what were the celebrations like?
Oh.
What was it?
Oh,
Mate, we don't have to go into a
There's
deep
plenty
dive.
of celebrations. I think when you're kind of going into a bigger game the next week, you can't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
We would have got on the piss,
we would have
but not maybe not as we had work to do. You know? Yeah.
Braith, last question. What's probably the biggest thing that we haven't talked about today that's, impacting you or that you'd like to talk about?
That's a good question. Biggest thing impacted me today. You mean
what's something that you're really passionate about? Like whether that being mental health, whether that being physical fitness, whether that being whatever's going on in your life, or even some advice that you could pass down to the average punter who's just going through it all.
Yeah, I think, I've kind of spoken about everything that's passionate in my life. I think, the big thing for me being on something, talking to you about this sort of stuff, this is my thing, I think I can resonate with a lot of people who have been through a lot of, tough times. But I'm big on just, again, I've probably said it, but you're not alone. There's light at the end of the tunnel and there's so many good times ahead. That's the big thing. I think we can all just sort of think that we're the only ones kind of going through stuff at times and feel sorry for ourselves, and that doesn't help. It doesn't really help you in your own mindset. It only probably takes you backwards. I don't know. I think I've kind of covered everything in that way, but in terms of what's important to me, and I'm very big on values. I think you should always have strong values in life, and if you stand by them and stick by them, you'll succeed. That's probably the best advice I can give.
Braith, mate, thank you so much for jumping on. Thanks for being vulnerable. Thanks for being a role model, not only to me, but to everyone else who you're managing in the community. Mate, love this conversation. I got a lot of love for you, mate. So, mate, thank you so much.
Thanks, Keys. Got a lot of love for you too, brother.
The best.